In today's interview, you're going to hear from somebody who's selling into what I would consider a really hard space. Imagine selling accounting services, auditing services, tax preparation services in a business-to-business world. So even if you're not selling into the financial group within a company, I think you're going to enjoy this because this perspective, this approach, we all can adapt. Because if you can take on the persona, the people that you sell to, you don't have to be one of them. But if you can hit on what they care about, their vocabulary, their incentives, their interest points, you can bond with them. And you don't have to be that gregarious salesperson. When I'm interviewing these world-class B2B enterprise salespeople, the number one theme seems to be that none of them are identical, which is great because probably none of us see ourselves as the stereotypical salesperson or a natural salesperson. Yet we all can be very effective. And typically people have a superpower, something that they do that is better than everyone else, or mostly everybody else in their space. So I think you're going to enjoy this episode. We had a great office hours yesterday, and I really appreciate when the people who are having success still come to the office hours to share their journey. Because there is this kind of resistance at first, uncomfortableness. It requires a little bit of planning ahead. And what I've learned is the complex sale, this business-to-business complex sale of many different decision makers, time gaps between conversations and meetings is just a trap after a trap after a trap. Meaning a trap is something that is so easy to fall into and really hard to get out of. And we have traps in our life all the time. Eating is a trap. The things that we want to eat typically are not the things that are good for us. In small quantities, they're okay, but we tend to stick with them. We tend to like them. And all of a sudden, we see ourselves in the mirror one day and we're like, maybe not so good for me. That's a trap. And there's so many of them in life. And in business-to-business sales, it's all a trap, meaning that if it seems good, we kind of go with it, and then all of a sudden they ghost us. And I keep saying that the default is to do nothing, and yeah, it kind of is. And we all can take an order, but the real upside for us in sales is the marginal deals, those deals that can and could be closed. So if you're in the courses already, make sure you're checking out the office hours. There's lots of great discussions. They tend to start off a little slow, but by the time we're done, people don't want to hang up. And that's the good part. They're all recorded and put in the course. They're the second to the last chapter, the very last chapter, the one-on-ones, where you really get to hear and talk about a deal. And the epiphany that I had just yesterday is when you can start getting people to talk about their deals, their particular situations, we can unravel them. And that's when you really see what is possible and what's really going on. When you're in game, when you're on the phone, when you're having the meeting, we tend to naturally fall in the traps. I do it. We all do it. And the worst thing we can do is deny that we do it. Once we recognize it, then we can start taking action to prevent it. Before we get into the interview, make sure you're checking out our friends over at Co-Video. They're putting out some great content, and video email is one of the game changers that we can have in our arsenal as far as communicating consistently with our prospects and our customers and being able to show them things. So go over to Co-Video, check it out, tell them you heard about the podcast. And do you know about the Sales Leadership Show? I have been interviewing the world's best sales leaders. And if you're either want to become a leader or you want to understand how they think, what they look for in reps, and how to interview with a sales leader, I'd listen to it just to give you that refresher before you have that conversation. If you want to understand how they're viewing reps, because we get in our own little world and we don't see it. Go check it out. The Sales Leadership Show. Here we go. Hey, Camille, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
All right. Thanks for having me. I love what you're doing, by the way. So it's fascinating to me to see all the different things that you do and really bringing your personality to it. So thank you for your work in this space. So Camille Clemens, I am the Director of Business Development at Cohen & Company, which is a CPA firm based in Cleveland, Ohio. We do work both on the private company side as well as the investment industry side. So my main focus is in the investment industry space. And I'm not sure how much time you have for the origin story of me, but I'll bring you up to, I grew up in the northwest suburbs of Chicago and still live in the area today. I attended a very small high school and purposefully attended a very small liberal arts college, where I majored in business with an emphasis in sports journalism and a minor in leadership studies. My first job out of school was a fund accountant, and I managed to survive in the operational world for about 8 years, really learning like the fundamentals of our industry before moving on to the business side and eventually becoming a salesperson.
Well, you're the first accounting person that we've had on this show that turned into a salesperson. What was the motivation behind that?
So there was one event that happened where I was working on a public pension plan, and one of the relationship managers, you don't really know it's not exciting until you realize it's not exciting. Yeah. And accounting is exciting to some people, and thank God for them.
Someone's got to do it.
Someone has to do it. And they do it really, really well because they take a lot of pride in it. Yeah. And it has to be done. Thank God it's done, right? So a relationship manager had taken me on a visit to the client where we were kind of giving them their annual reports, and she allowed me to speak and to talk about the work that I'd done. And it was really in that engagement that I recognized, this is fun. Like, I'd way rather talk to people all day than make sure that I'm tied out at the end of the day. So that's kind of how it evolved.
And did that ever surface before then, either in your social life or your personal life? Or I saw you played sports in college.
I did. I mean, I wanted a job out of college, right? Like, my main goal was to not move home, which I love my parents dearly, but at the same time, like, it was my time. Yeah. And so I found a firm that was willing and able to hire me. They saw something, and I'm forever grateful for those long nights and weekends putting in just getting financial statements out, because it's given me a lot of work ethic. And I think that does stem from the athletics that are in my past. You have to work hard, and there's really no getting around that if you want to be successful.
Because when you think of accounting and accountants, I think it's the classic introvert, isn't it? People who like to work by themselves. It's quantifiable. It's
there's some outliers out there. Yeah. There's some outliers. Okay. But generally speaking, you're right. I mean, it's typecast role. They're very detail oriented, technically proficient. Their main goal is to ensure that what they're producing is a quality piece of work, right? And I think there's a lot of parallels you can draw between accounting and sales, because I approach my job the same way. Like, I do the research. I'm fluent in my industry. I take pride in my work, and those things apply regardless if you're, footing at the end of the month or working in sales.
But what doesn't apply is what's on the other end, right? The people, because they do not behave predictably or as predictably as we like.
You're right about that.
You noticed You're right that
about too? That. 100%. I mean, decision-making, especially in the environment we're in right now, is fascinating. Like, how did you end up there? And, it's our job on the sales side of things to really, I think you even talked about this morning, and I've been selling like this. I call it selling, but like, I've really been solving problems like this a long time. time. So you figure out what the pain point is, and then you leverage your experience to kind of pick out those points in time where you've helped another client through that, or you've seen something that could help them through the situation. And I think the more you're familiar and you're fluent in your network, you can help somebody solve any problem they have. And really being that first call for them to say, Camille, I'm not sure that you're going to have this answer, but you probably can help me figure it out. Like that to me is the holy grail.
And I ironically just got off an interview where the rep said, what I find most powerful is solving problems. When I wake up in the morning and I hear about problems, I just put a smile on my face because now I have something to talk about or with.
Right.
But how much of your selling is to cold people who don't know who your firm is?
Well, my goal is to never make a cold call. Like I can find an in no matter what I work in an industry that's very tight knit, right? And I feel like along the way you pick up people who, as long as you're like genuinely interested in relationships, like not doing it because you're going to make a ton of money. Like, sure, that's going to come, but you have to do it first. Like you have to put in the time and really be interested in people and in solving problems, and not just for this one thing, but like generally. Yeah. So I'm not sure that answers the question, but I do think it fundamentally requires a level of interest that, like, I'm very grateful that I'm a curious person.
Right. And I think that curiosity, because what I'm learning about curiosity, is the first step to so many things.
Sure.
First step to interest. It's the first step to passionate about what you do. How can you be excited about what you do if you're not curious about it?
Well, and please tell me you're excited about what you do. If you don't have that, then what are we doing here?
Yeah. And what I meant about cold was I got to believe that you call on people or talk with people who are kind of at even keel. They're comfortable. They want to be comfortable, but you've got to find something that they shouldn't be comfortable about.
Yeah, you're right. The new business side of my job is really, really time consuming. So it's time consuming to understand, right, what those pain points are. It's extra time consuming to figure out how they apply to the universe in which you work. And then third, to figure out what is it that our firm could do to help them solve for that. So I don't like to go into a conversation not understanding, at least foundationally, what a firm is about. So there's a genuine amount of research that's done in advance of picking up the phone. And I'm old school, right? Like I've grown up in this like hand-to-hand combat, and the human interaction to me is way more valuable than sending out form letters. And to me, that's the ultimate cold call, is if you're just blanket sending the same thing to anyone who will maybe pick up the mail. Yeah. Like I would way rather save the energy and resources and do like some very targeted outreach to people who I know will fit what it is we can help them achieve, right? So I don't know if I'm answering your question, and I'm not dancing around the concept of cold calling, because I do think there are people I talk to who I just don't know, which is where the genuine curiosity comes in. Like I just I love to ask questions and I love to hear their answers. And from there, I'm just kind of picking out what's relevant.
Because curiosity and interest in the other person is a give, even though it's not a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's really hard to ignore somebody who's curious and interested in you and what you think.
Well, and I picked you for a reason, right? Like I'm calling you. I'm not sending that letter to 1,000 people. I called you. And that in itself, I think, is a leap of faith that you've got to at least be comfortable enough to know that you can probably help them in some way.
Yeah. And what's the hardest part of your job?
The hardest part of my job. I don't know. Right now, the hardest part of my job is not seeing people. It's trying to be creative and still be kind of in all the places I want to be without actually physically leaving this chair for 12 hours a day. Like
You were
it's,
a field person before this, right?
yeah. So
Yeah.
I've gone from maybe 60% of my time on the road to now 100% of my
The
time in
time.
this
No.
chair. Yeah.
And have you found anything that works for you now? Now that it's been a while, that you've found your groove, or is it still uncomfortable?
I think all the field time that I spent building those relationships and really educating the marketplace on who we are and what we do is actually coming back to help at the moment. So I feel like we're in this really weird phase where it's easier for someone to say, I'm going to go in a different direction because they're not looking at you and sitting across from you.
Yeah.
And it might be a little bit easier to make a different decision than they would if they were sitting across from you because there's a little less personal um, attention paid to now it's just a process, right? Like I need an auditor, I need somebody to do my taxes, let me just go find someone. Where before we actually had the chance to like build the rapport. And
Right.
now I feel like we're leveraging those relationships that we've spent years building. And you know, my most gratifying moments are when I get a call from someone saying, "Hey, I heard from so and so that this is the call I needed to make because you guys are right for us." Like for me, having someone selling for us when we can't be in that room where it happens, that's like 100 times victory, right?
And what motivates you as a rep?
I believe in our industry, and I believe that the investment industry is stronger when things are done properly. And
Yeah.
I know that we do that. I know that we help people live the lives they are trying to live. I guess if you're going to boil it down to kind of what motivates me. And I know that we do it really well and with passion and with precision.
And how do you not fall into that commodity trap? Because I got to believe that everybody that you're talking to that doesn't really know you wants to put you in. We're all set. We've got somebody, or somebody internally. My cousin's brother's friend is great.
It's a really good question because it's obviously easy to view the world of public accounting as a commodity, right?
Yeah.
And the like the differentiator that we bring to the marketplace and the real value that I think that we lean on every day is we work best with those who take this seriously. They believe in the power of partnering with a firm that can help you do it right. Whether it's your tax structuring for a new fund product that you're launching, or it's working through like any of the accounting standards that you're not quite sure how to handle. So you can go to the biggest of the big and have kind of a name on your annual reports. You're probably not going to get a ton of attention, right? Especially if you're not the biggest of the big. Or you can go with the kind of more regional player who can do the work and arguably does it well, especially when things are simple. But when these technical accounting issues come up and you really need someone who can help you navigate the changing landscape that is investment management, like you need someone who's going to pick up the phone when you call. And you're going to need someone who, if they aren't the ones who have experienced this with their clients before, they have somebody in their team that has. And they can easily go out and source that person and bring them to the table and say, let's work through this. And I think that that's a really unique place that we sit in the market that may be unmatched by our peers because we really do take it seriously and we live and breathe this. This is all we do.
Yeah. And is it like law firms? Like law firms, the partners go out and drum up business. In accounting firms, is it the
Yeah.
same way, or do they just try and rely on referrals and networking and
Historically.
yeah,
So this firm is about 40 years old
is that
and
all?
I am, right? I from the investment industry standpoint, I'm the first outside salesperson that's been brought in to kind of serve in this capacity. So historically, there's been a group of partners that have gone out, that have built the relationships, that really have built this business to where we are today. And if you look back, that's a really impressive
It
accomplishment.
is.
So
Yeah.
going from, the roots of the business in Cleveland, Ohio back in 1977 to now we have 10 offices with 650 professionals in the span of 40 years. I mean, without major acquisition and major like purchasing of accounts and things just to bolster up our size, like we've been responsibly grown. And I think that's what keeps us resilient in the marketplace. So to answer the question, yes, it's similar to a law firm in the fact that the professional partners, the ones that are out there as client partners, are building relationships with influencers in the marketplace, are working with the boards of trustees that govern some of the funds that we work on, are working with the third party service providers to ensure that we have healthy dialogue. And when we are developing things, we know that they know what we're doing. Um, so that's how we got to where we are. But it became an inflection point when we're now at a point where we're legit. So we're big enough where we feel that we've built a really resilient business with super smart people. And so let's see what happens if we bring in someone who's specifically focused on new business. And in that development of kind of my role, it's been interesting to try and figure out where my place is. And I think it's been really humbling to walk into a room of really smart people and feel like I have a role. And it's very gratifying to see that, my definition of a team is your ability to bring out the strengths of everyone around the table because everyone has a role. And so sitting next to a technical expert that thinks about things one way, and then me looking at things from a completely different perspective really does give our client kind of a unique view into our collective experience.
And how did you learn the complexities of a complex sale? Was it just trial and error? Was there a mentor?
Yeah, I'm relentless, right? So I think having an operational foundation for me to build my sales um, experiences on is I rely on that every day because I can always come back to, yes, I know what it is we're delivering because I've done it. Like I've done the work and I know what it means to screw it up. So this is why we have to make sure that everything is done properly because if it isn't, I know what that feels like. So for our clients, they know that like that exists. So my sales journey has been really, really unique. I took the leap of faith back in 2000. I'm aging myself. It's fine. 2008. So roughly the time of probably late 2007, which is even worse. Yeah, a couple things happened around that time. But I moved onto the business side when I recognized that this is where I wanted to be at the moment. And let's see if this is going to work out. If it doesn't, then I'm really grateful for the experiences and my understanding of the back office. I can not easily, I'm not taking it for granted, but there's probably going to be a place for me there if this doesn't work out. So my first job in sales was supporting a global team. So it was really a lot of research, presentation prep, some inbound call taking, really responding to RFPs, and really understanding how the sales cycle works. And I'll never forget one of the salespeople that I worked with at one point. He asked me to put something together for a client. He was dropping off a package, and he wanted me to put mints in this package. And we had these little tins of mints, and there was no real way to present it nicely, right? So it looked like something we would want to give as a gift. And so I dumped him in a bag. And he looked at me, he's like, "Is that what you want us to look like?" And I said, and we didn't all see eye to eye on a lot of things, but there were certain points in my career where something like that really left a mark. And that was 12 years ago. So, I mean, it's those little things you pick up along the way from the people that you've seen be successful that I rely on kind of throughout. And then I read a lot. My mom asks me, "Do you need really to listen to another podcast about this?" And I said, it's my response. Like, this is my job. This is my livelihood. Yes, I need to listen to another book or another podcast because things are changing.
Well, and that's it, because accounting is kind of a classic, do you know it? Versus sales is, how well do you do it?
So it's funny. I often draw the parallel, or I feel the need to delineate the difference between the sales process and the buyer's journey
Yeah.
because they're very different. And just because I think I need it to go here next, that client might not be ready for 6 months. I mean, maybe never, but it's funny. You figure out what works, and the more you want something, and we do have prospects where we really want to make sure that like this is ideal, and this is a client we would love to earn. You just find creative ways of being relevant, and you keep them in mind. And I feel like it's part of the process, both on the sales side and the buyer side, because you are needing to ensure that you stay relevant to your best prospects. And you never know when that one thing that you send them, or that one phone call that you make to say, hey, did you see this, or whatever it is to make, to make the call. You never know when that one thing is going to be the one thing. And so I think I take this really seriously because I love the challenge of winning.
And do you have other salespeople, other people who have the same role as you or a similar role?
So in the investment industry portion of our business, no, I'm the only person kind of responsible for this. We do have a very robust marketing team that was put in place a couple of years ago, so it's been fun to do projects with them and
Yeah.
kind of trial and error. And we put in a CRM, and what does that look like, and how do we leverage that? And um, so no, I'm the only one in the investment industry. There are a couple of other people who focus on the private company side of our business. And we've started to create this little team within, because it's just nice to know you've got someone else who understands what you're going through.
Yeah, because it's very unique, especially when you haven't done sales either before. It's just, how do you kind of gauge yourself as a, am I doing the right things? What, because I always had like, what would this person do? And I had like a role model or not, wasn't
Yeah.
an active mentor. It was just me observing them. And like, why did they do this? Why didn't they do that? Like the candy in the bag thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, here, no, I don't have anyone else that's done it. And this isn't the first time I've been kind of out there as a one of one.
Yeah.
So my last role, I was the only US employee, so responsible for growth of a firm in a market that they were just entering. So they were looking for acquisition, they were trying to figure out what the landscape looked like. They brought me in to try and help foster that along. And so being of one is challenging. And I found after 18 months that was not ideal for me. I need the energy of a team and people and collaboration. And
Yeah.
I've known the company that I'm with now for about 10 years, and we've done a lot of referral business back and forth over the years. And one of the reasons that I would refer business to them is because I knew they know what they were talking about. I knew that they would respond as I would because they care about their clients. And then at the end of the day, when they were looking to fill this role, it was a perfect match.
Yeah. And what do you wish you knew when you first started this role that you know now? Either an epiphany or a mindset?
I wish that I had learned patience and
Yeah.
real patience, real patience. You can be fake patient, meaning you just every 10 seconds you click refresh as opposed to every 1 second you click refresh to see if they've responded yet, right? So patience is certainly something that I've learned, and kind of, I'm going to call it loosening the grip a little bit. I think it's one thing to be passionate about what you do and really want to succeed. And it's another thing about being obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And I found that if I can just kind of let it go, have its path, run its course, well, being mindful of where it is and not neglecting it, but also not like being all up in its grill the whole time. I think that's where the patience, the ability to just like, it's got to do its thing, right? I can't see it ever. I can't micromanage the process.
Yeah.
It's like raising kids. Like they're gonna
Right.
do what they do, right? You can be there as a guide for them. You can help them, but you can't like tie their shoe until they're 20. Like, so I've learned patience. I've learned to just kind of let it sit for a little bit. Don't be too manic about it. Don't be too obsessive about it. I wish I'd learned that earlier.
Yeah. Cool. Hey, this has been a fun conversation. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Sure. So I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Twitter. So LinkedIn is Camille Clemens, Chicago based. So you can find me that way. Or Twitter is Camille E. Clemens. And then we also have cohencpa.com, which is our company's website.
Now, I hope what you're hearing in these interviews is that none of these people are just copying a sales methodology, spin, strategic, whatever, challenger. Those are all good skills, and they're part of your repertoire. But the greatest salespeople develop their own process that works for them, their personality, their market, their customer. And there's two major components of it is starting conversations and building into meetings, talking about what the other person cares about. Now, that is daunting. That is overwhelming when you first hear that. And what do? We revert into who we are, what we do, why we're better, why you need us, what happens if you don't use us. And that works apparently about 1 to 3% of the time when you happen to hit somebody at the moment that they're in market. But that's kind of like a tow truck driving around looking for a broken down car. Now, there's thousands of cars on the highway, and once in a while, there'll be a broken down car. And if you're the tow truck driver, guess what? You got a client. That person's in active pain. They're looking for a tow truck. But the world's changed. Everyone's got a phone in their car now. And when you get, your car breaks down and you can't do anything with it, you have it towed. You call up, you get on the internet, and boom, they find you, they tow you. This is kind of like what's happening to us in sales today, is that the people in market search us out. But what we have to do is find the people who, when they are in market, are ready to call us. The people that you have a know, like, and trust relationship with. Most of the things that we're selling, there's a window of opportunity for them to change their mind. Like in the case today. Now, mid-year or mid-audit, they're probably not going to change their accounting service. But after that, they may be open to it. Not to switch on the phone that day, but to learn about new services, new capabilities, more advanced services. And most of the things that we're selling require that know, like, and trust to be built. And it doesn't get built in an email. It doesn't get built in a single conversation. It takes a little bit of time. So you can either ignore this and just work on the inbound stuff, work on existing accounts, and you could probably do pretty well with that. But look at your pipeline and look at the things that really close, the things that you spent all that time on, and did they close? Starting conversations and getting meetings in your marketplace is the game changer. And if you had a system that was easy, simple, step by step, natural, organic, authentic, no gimmicks, that you could then build off of and develop the skill. That skill to be able to start conversations with complete strangers as you wish, when you want, so that you can build up that network, that ecosystem, that pipeline, so that when things become in a need, that pain, you can take that pain from latent to active. Hey, that tire looks a little thin. It's wobbling there. You're not going to make it to the airport. I'm your tow truck. That's what start the conversation, get the meetings all about. The other major problem we have is we fall into all these traps about the complex sale. And it's not about knowledge. It may be about knowledge at the right time. But how do you get the knowledge at the right time? You have to plan. You have to think it through. You have to put your strategy together. And what are we? We're all in that trap. We're in the trap of getting our customers what they want, answering their questions, giving them proposals. And how do they reciprocate? They ghost us. They have everything they need. We're dealing with people with no power, people who have a need, have influence, have some authority, but not enough. Do you realize how little a vice president at a big company can spend? Near zero. Most cases, it is zero. If they can't put it on their corporate credit card, they can't buy it. They have to socialize it. They have to bring it around. They have to get buy-in. They have to get people above them and above them to approve it. And that requires certain artifacts, a certain process, certain coaching, certain elements to persuade those people to take action and approve it. Everyone thinks it's money. And it's money in the sense that the money isn't allocated, but all these companies have money. Everyone's in a wash of money right now that's in the bank or accessible. It's not money. You can tell if it's money before you even talk to people. The Googles and the LinkedIns, they can tell you if the company's hiring or firing, how big they are. You can reverse engineer their revenue very quickly in less than a minute. And you can tell if they can afford it. And you don't sell to people who can't afford it. If they're living in their mom's basement, they probably can't afford it, no matter how much they like it. So the budget thing is bullshit. I'm sorry. Nothing I ever sold was budgeted. The only things that I ever budgeted for are repeat purchases. Does it mean I couldn't sell? No. Does it mean it might be harder? Yeah. But this is where the gold is. How you're going to crush your number and get to 150, 200% of your number is on making deals bigger, faster, and more likely. Now, how do you do all that? If you don't have a system, if you don't have a step-by-step process that works for you and works for your clients, if you don't avoid these traps, you're wasting a minimum of half your year. 6 months, you could just as well go on vacation because you're working on stuff that will never close. If I looked at your pipeline, look at your pipeline right now, or look at last quarters. Look at your calendar and mark down all of the deals that you worked on that didn't close. I bet it's more than half. And then we get distracted by the internal stuff, the admin, the enablement, the marketing update, the kickoff, the QBR, and we treat that like it's real work. And yes, it takes up time, but it takes up that precious time of selling, that time of strategizing and thinking. And our managers, they assume that doesn't take time, but it does. It really does. And we pay for it. How do you maximize your income? If you're thinking like an employee, you're by default a B player. You just are. You have to think like an entrepreneur. You have to drive your territory, your business like a CEO. And if you don't, it'll drive you. And the comp plans, they're gamed so that you won't make it. They're not gamed so that you will. The comp plans are designed to attract new people with a high on-target earnings. And they'll only do unnatural things for that top 1%. The very best of the A players. And I don't say this just to convince you to take a course. I've been watching this my whole career, and it's changing. And it's really trying to drive out the middle class of sales, people that could make a ton of money being a B player. They can do okay, but then that's not a good lifestyle. Why? Because they're going to keep cutting your territory, upping your quota, and then you're going to go to another place and you have to build up from scratch. The real gold today and always will be A players, people who are crushing their number, people who can understand a deal, understand what to work on in what order. Judgment. And that judgment is a skill that no one teaches, people assume you have, and is being destroyed by sales technology. Not on purpose, but it's an unintended consequence. Because when you come in the morning, you feel so comfortable looking at the thousands of deals in your CRM, all these connections you have on LinkedIn, and you go, somebody's got to buy. I'm definitely going to get an order somehow. But no, people do what they have to and a little bit of what they want to. We have to position and get our clients into the have to, where they're so convinced that they need to take action, and action now, not eventually. Eventually, we're all going to have summer houses and private jets. What you have to do is get them to want it now, need it now, understand the impact of not doing it now. And that's what closing the complex sale is all about. And when you hear the people in there, no one's in there who works for, a big brand and they got a lot of inbound and they're cherry picking what deal to work on. Most people are like, if I don't do something unnatural, I'm not even going to make my number. I'm not going to have a job. These people are really trying to get, all marginal deals, not just some. Maybe they have a couple, but you're just not going to make your number on the easy deals, the inbound, the account management, because your manager knows that. And they'll give you like 20%, but they really want you to create incremental revenue. And to do that, you have to close deals that would not otherwise close. You have to be the difference that makes the difference. So go check out Winning the Complex Sale. Really appreciate everybody listening. Tell a friend about the show. If you are a great salesperson or you know a great salesperson and you want to get your word out, get a little following on LinkedIn, get a little branding, nothing's better than sending an interview of you on the world's largest sales podcast, by far, by an order of 10, no matter what you hear from little leprechauns out there, and you show them that video, you will get the job. Trust me, I've seen it work. I've had people on the show, and within 2 weeks, they're like, man, I'm a rock star. People know who I am because they've been on the show. You probably don't have a sense of the reach of this, but in the sales world, content is consumed passively. Podcasts, you can walk, run, cook, do whatever you want while you listen. I listen to podcasts all day. I sleep with podcasts. And the other part is they want to hear from people like themselves, and you're one of them. So if you want to be on the shows, hit me up on LinkedIn, and I'll try and get you on as soon as we can. I know the little 15-minute call slots are booked months in advance. Sorry about that. I'm trying to hire someone to answer your questions. But in the meantime, I put a frequently asked questions and answers on the front page of the YouTube channel. So just search Brian Burns Sales on YouTube. They're in the show notes of the podcast, right here, right on your smartphone. Just swipe up. They're right there in the show notes. And the video is also on my LinkedIn page. So Brian G. Burns on LinkedIn. It's right there. You can just scroll down right in the middle of the profile. If those questions are not, all your questions are not answered, just shoot me up an email on LinkedIn. I'll get right back to you. And my email's in the show notes as well. We'll see you next time. Make sure you're checking out the other shows. Sales Questions, Brutally Honest Answers, B2B, Revenue Leadership, and the Sales Leadership Show. You just can't get enough of me. I can't stop talking about sales, baby. Let's crush it.